Hello again. For those unfamiliar with the tool, I would like to introduce you all to something called Sli.do, which I will give you some examples and show you the website later on in this segment. Now, originally made for business meetings and conferences, Sli.do allows you to create live polls, Q&As, word clouds, and rating or ranking systems with your students for them to interact with during class. Now, while there is plenty of education technology specifically created with teachers and students in mind, teachers also have a natural talent for taking other technology and strategies and implementing them in the classroom quite effectively. After all, things like Zoom started off as a conference meeting app, and I'm sure many of us have spent a lot of the last year or two tutoring or teaching or having faculty meetings and similar things in Zoom rooms, right? It's very much become something that we've taken as our own. And I think Sli.do is something that can be used in a similar way. I was actually introduced to the website and the app as an undergraduate student, and I have used it in many classrooms since. I had an enjoyable experience with it as a student, being able to participate and see poll results and things live. And I wanted to implement that in my classroom because if I enjoyed it, I was sure I would be able to have my own students enjoy it as well. Similar to Kahoot, after creating your prompt or poll questions, students log on to the Sli.do website or app if they're allowed to use their phones in the classroom and input the session code or scan the QR code that is provided. Then students can engage in the activity while live results can be shared or presented on a separate screen from the teacher. So I will show you a very brief example, and then we will look a bit closer into the website. So this is what the screen can look like when it's live. You have your QR code. Down where the hashtag tutorial is where you would normally have your custom code for the class. And as the class goes on, say this was your poll, an entry ticket, or a warm-up activity, as people participate, you will see the poll move with live time, which a lot of my students have really gotten a kick out of. They like, even though I teach middle school and high schoolers, they still get excited about the little things like that. So these sessions can be kept open for a few hours or even a few days, which can then help engage asynchronous learners in these activities as well. One of my student teaching placements this past spring was with Commonwealth Charter Academy, or CCA, which is a cyber school that facilitates both synchronous and asynchronous learning for students of all ages. So I had a 10th grade class at the time, and when I worked with those students, I always tried to utilize tools or incorporate things into my lesson plan that could be accessed and used by all of my students, regardless of when, where, or how they learned, right? Some of those activities that you kind of have to be there in class to experience, those are some of the very fun parts of learning, or the parts that students tend to gravitate toward. So by being able to provide that for students in and outside of the classroom, still being able to partake in one joint activity or joint session can really change that impact and make the students who maybe weren't able to be in class feel a little more involved with what they missed that day, and maybe start to feel that they didn't really miss too much. They're still able to catch up and be a part of the conversation. So I am going to share with you all an example of a word cloud activity, which I completed with my students, the 10th graders who I had mentioned. As you can see here, this is an example of the completed word cloud activity. You can see the prompt for this session was, what comes to mind when you hear the word resistance? So for a word cloud on Sli.do, students are able to submit as many words or phrases as they like. I also encourage my students to type phrases they see on the word cloud that are already submitted, but that they agree with, because then this allows the words to change size based on student agreement and input. And that's what makes the word cloud look dynamic. So as you can see, most of it was on task, right? They were very excited about Star Wars at the time. But then we're able to pull, from media that they're familiar with, right? Well, why does that make you think of resistance? What do you think of? And you can see, some of the things that students agreed with each other. You can see how many votes for each word or phrase. So students are also able to participate in this anonymously, which I have found really helps to alleviate some of that anxiety and the nerves in terms of what they contribute, because middle school and high schoolers, right, they can be very judgmental of each other, and therefore that makes people very nervous. They don't want to say something that might sound silly. They don't want to submit something that maybe someone might make fun of or, laugh at. And this allows you to have them all submit as much as they want, as little as they want, and giving it all, the respect. Everyone's on an even playing field with that. And I found that it gets the kids to participate more. So if I were to show what this looks like when it is active, give it a second to load here. So this is what the screen looks like when it's active in terms of what I share with the students and what they get to see as they submit things to the word cloud. So then I can then save this word cloud for later reference. For example, my students completed this activity as a sort of warm-up / entry ticket exercise. And then later on in the unit, as we continue to expand upon this idea of resistance, in this case, I would pull this image back up to ask the students how their opinions had changed, if their opinions had changed at all, since our original discussion, which I felt was very beneficial for larger overarching concepts in a specific text or unit. And this can be incorporated not just in English class, right? You can think of other things that this could be incorporated in, right? If you wanted to do a similar format to what I did, what is the first thing you think of when you think about World War II, if we're thinking of a history class? Or name one planet from our solar system, if we're thinking of a science class. And then that can vary the different levels, right? Even younger students, obviously, also in the wake of COVID, have become very, very technologically adept, right? We no longer have, younger kids who need a ton of assistance with technology. There are some that do, obviously, and we are there to help them with that. But a lot of kids are able to use these sorts of things, and adding technology into the classroom when a lot of students are raised in such a technological world excites them and makes them more engaged in the learning process. Sli.do also allows integration in PowerPoint and Google Slides, which then allows it to be incorporated into some technology that more of us are familiar with, right? It becomes a lot less daunting and intimidating when we can take something new and put it in a format or in a general setup that is something that we've been using for a very long time or have been using very, very often. And basic polling, word cloud, ranking, Q&A capabilities are all free with an account, right? I think we're very used to seeing, there's a premium or a pro or a plus version of this account. But the nice thing is that you're able to do everything I showed you today and even more than that without having to pay a cent, which makes it very teacher friendly, right? Very easy to access, right? I'm always less hesitant to use something when it's free and I can play around with it and get used to it before I agree to pay money for a service. And you can save any previous word clouds, save any previous poll results for later reference for you as a teacher, for student discussion and review and reflection. And you can even save word cloud prompts, poll prompts, ranking prompts, and recreate them for the next school year or for separate class periods, right? So you can keep period 3's word cloud separate from period 5's word cloud and have everything very clearly labeled on the website without confusion, and then allowing everybody to participate in these different things and influence the way they go with their individual classes dynamic. And overall, this tool has been very helpful to me, especially engaging students through a computer screen, since it isn't necessarily a specifically education tool, right? It's not what it was made for. It's something that a lot of students haven't seen before. And when students are introduced to new technology, they get very excited and very engaged. They want to learn how it works. They want to participate and see what it does for them and for the class as a whole. So I found it very effective and very much engaging for my students. And I hope that you're able to try it as well and have similar results.